John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 53, I believe, of Godzilla Wins Saturday Big Show on this lovely Saturday morning, August 26th, 2023. I am your host, Jack Fredericks, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks, and the senior editor at GodzillaWins.com, Nate Perry. Hey, go to GodzillaWins.com for all of your sports analysis and predictions on everything from the UFC to now college football and the NFL. For the first 30 minutes here, we are joined by senior writer Dan Angell from GodzillaWins.com. If you go to GodzillaWins.com right now, you'll see on the website the feature article are Dan's Week 0 picks. He's got a lot of fun ones for you. Interesting week this week as we get the college football season started. But we are fired up. I mean fired up for the college football season, NFL around the corner. We get all your analysis, your picks, and your predictions. So we're going to be talking college football the first 30 minutes. Then we're going to hand it over to my father for about at the top of the hour to talk some of the racing form at Colonial Downs. Then we'll welcome in Sheriff Clark and Patrick Assalone, and we'll talk a lot of NFL. Got a lot of stuff going on in the NFL right now. Big Trey Lance trade and some other stuff as the season gets started there. If you are in a state where DraftKings is offered, what you can do right now, listen, this is the easiest thing to do in the world. If you like sports and you want to have a little bit more fun with it, you can go to DraftKings.com/sign up. That's DraftKings.com/sign up. And a $5 bet with the promo code Godzilla can get you $150 in free play. So you take that $5 bet and you can turn it to $150 in free play. All you need is that.
Hey, Jack, guess what?
Godzilla.
They just upped it to $200 this morning. $200.
Hot off the presses as college football starts. Now it's $200. So a $5 bet gets you $200 in free play. You can use that in any way you wish. And there's a lot of stuff going on right now. We got a lot of golf, got some UFC that's actually going on currently right now in Singapore. Got some college football coming up. So I'm sure DraftKings is excited as well as us. Now, Godzilla Wins and all its subsidiaries are for entertainment purposes only. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537 in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. 800-327-5050. Visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org. In Massachusetts, call 877-G-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In Arizona, 1-800-522-4700. In Kansas, New Hampshire, 888-789-777. Visit ccpg.org. In Connecticut, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or visit copgr.org in Oregon. I want to welcome everybody to the show. Glad to see you guys. Hey, this is it. College football started. I can already feel the fall, brisk, cool air in the 115 heat index here in Mississippi.
Yeah, how's it cooler here on Oahu than it is on the mainland?
It's crazy. It's crazy. And look, Dan, I didn't put this in the run sheet, but I think since you're down in Hawaii, we'll have to talk about that Hawaii Vanderbilt game, which has some implications. So we'll talk about that too as we get into the show. But look, I want to start here with our panel. I want to be talking about the Navy Notre Dame game. Week 0 is a weird week because you don't have all the teams playing. Used to just be you'd have one team going to Hawaii, some international maybe games. This game, Notre Dame and Navy being played in Ireland, kind of an interesting thing. That's happened a couple times before. And it could give us a glimpse into how Notre Dame will play this year. And Navy is always kind of a darling when it comes to the betting world. So Dan, I'm going to start with you because you wrote an article for GodzillaWins.com. You've got a pick with your full analysis of Notre Dame and Navy on GodzillaWins.com. So we'll start with you and kind of what your feel for the game is. Then we'll go to Nate, who is a big Navy or Service Academy guy. He's got some hot takes on how to bet the Service Academy. So go ahead, Dan, give us your thoughts on Navy Notre Dame.
So the biggest thing about Notre Dame was last year, the quarterback play was just subpar, and that's putting it kindly. Notre Dame did most of their damage running the football. The run game is still pretty strong, and now they've brought in Sam Hartman from Wake Forest. So the passing attack should be pretty solid this game. I think people are reading a little bit too much into the weather in Dublin. It's expected to be a kind of cloudy, bit of a mess with some of the rain coming in, but that's classic Midwestern weather. I mean, Notre Dame's going to be used to playing in that, and this is a matchup where historically Notre Dame puts up a lot of points. I think they've only had one of the past 6 where they've been held under 30 against Navy. So I think Notre Dame comes out, puts up a really nice number. I think the over is definitely in play here, and I think Notre Dame can cover this 20.5.
So the points play is an interesting angle here because, Nate, as you were talking earlier in the show before we started air, Service Academy, always bet the under. That can be a safe play. A lot of those games for Navy went under last year, but this is a little bit different because Notre Dame is not the type of competition that Navy is always playing. And then, of course, we've got our weatherman angle as well. So what do you think here? Do you like the over, or you still want to go with the under in that Navy game?
I mean, the total is probably like my least favorite play of the ones that I like. I mean, I think that my inclination is always, first game of the season, guys are going to be a little bit rusty, and it's tough for me to play the over here just because, like Dan was saying, Notre Dame does run the ball quite a bit. That was sort of the key to their success last year. And Navy brings back quite a bit of their defense, and their defense was pretty decent last year in terms of getting teams off the field and sort of preventing sort of big plays. So there's a part of me that thinks like I like this game to stay under, just sort of on those numbers alone. It seems like because this weather is going to suck, obviously, as we sort of talked about with the weatherman angle, and then obviously Notre Dame does what they do best, which is run the ball. Navy does what they do best, which is always run the ball. It just feels like the clock's going to be running a lot. And I just think that it'll probably be a little bit of a sloppier game than we're sort of maybe giving them credit for in week 0 with all the travel and everything else. So that's sort of my first look at it. My second look at it is my favorite play is just taking Navy plus the points. I mean, 3 touchdowns with a Navy team that looks like they're going to get a lot better. Like I said, they're returning tons of production on the defensive side of the ball, which is great. I think that the new hire for Navy, their new offensive coordinator, Grant Chestnut, he's a guy that's had a lot of success running the triple option at Kennesaw State. I think that he'll come in and sort of revitalize what was becoming a pretty stale triple option attack under Ken Niumatalolo. So that's sort of where I'm at in terms of like this game is just, I think that Navy is going to surprise a lot of people here. So I don't even hate just maybe just a little taster on the money line at plus 850. Notre Dame's always doing this where they just stub their toes in stupid ways. I mean, that home loss to Marshall was like ridiculous last year. Like I will never trust Notre Dame, and I don't like them anyways. And I just see no other way to bet this than to bet Navy. That's where I'm at.
Listen, I like Navy. I like Navy in this game, and I'm going to bet him 2 times. I'm going to bet him in the first half plus 12.5, and then I'm going to take the whole game. And I think I just on DraftKings got 20-21. Look, this game's in Dublin. Like they had a fly over there. Notre Dame's got all kinds of issues on the defensive line, like you guys mentioned. They got 3 new starters, and the thing is about Navy. I kind of see Notre Dame here getting off to a sluggish start. Navy's going to run the football, the college defensive line. Navy's got a brand new coach, and they got their defensive coordinators back, and they've got a bunch of starters back on their both offensive and defensive line. So you look at a game like this where they got to fly over the pond Navy's got returning seniors that are, incoming seniors that started as juniors on both the D and the O line. Notre Dame has neither of those. So I think this game, 21 is just too much. But I never bet the first half, ever. But I really love Navy in this game in the first half with 12.5, because I just see these teams getting off to a very sluggish start. Maybe somebody's ahead at the half, 10-3 or something. So I like Navy today. And I think they're going to be a little bit of a better team than people think. And Notre Dame is always overrated at the beginning of the season because they got all that Notre Dame, Irish, Vegas money that drives the line. So I like the middies here.
I want to change my bet. Just do whatever Dan says. I agree with John too much.
Yeah. I mean, he look.
I mean,
first of all,
go ahead, Jack.
So first off, one of the things that we have to just get out of the way here is that John comes out hot out of the gate, first game of the season with a first half bet. Which last year, Dan, listen, last year, if you were on this panel,
I was going to say, who are you and what have you done with John Fredericks?
That's right. He would have spent 15 minutes being like, you millennials and your stupid prop bets, Notre Dame tradition, book it. So the fact that he took a first half bet and is going on Navy, I'm so proud of the guy for evolving.
And is taking an underdog that he doesn't think can win.
This
is crazy.
This is all just nuts. John's changed.
Well, you know what? I've evolved.
Show just got a whole lot less fun because John got smarter.
This is going to be the first. Oh, first of all, I'm never betting an over/under, so you can forget that. I don't bet props. You can forget that. I don't bet parlays. Those are sucker bets, so you forget that. And I don't bet first halves. But in this particular game, I mean, I gotta look at this thing that the 12.5 just popped out at me. First of all, why are you 12.5 in the first half and then 20.5 in the game? I mean, that didn't make sense to me
because
either.
The expectation is Notre Dame's going to be clearing its bench in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
which it's done 3 of the last 4 meetings against
Navy. Navy. When does Navy really get blown out? Right? Not a lot. They got a good
against
team.
Notre Dame. They usually do.
Well, they're going to run the football. I just don't think Notre Dame is that good this season. But look, that's why we put this panel up. And when we go to the NFL, we're going to get Nate's going to do our chart every week so we can put it up on Godzilla Wins, and we're going to see what's what, right? So we can rate everything, and everybody can be held accountable to their picks, good or bad. I believe in accountability and transparency, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
That's old school.
It'll be like the first time you've been held accountable for anything on this show in years.
Yeah. Well, I do my baseball column. I put that up.
Yeah,
that's true. Okay, fair enough.
You guys are so jealous of me. I mean, look, instead of being jealous of me, emulate me. See, I'm like your mentor. And as you get older, you're going to all look back and say, you know what? There's so many things that Dad was right on, that John was right on, and I'm just your mentor. That's all. Helping you guys out.
Thanks.
You're welcome
for that. So Dan, I'll give you the last word on the Navy Notre Dame thing because you're kind of on the other side. I would say that I lean more towards the over here, just based on the fact that Notre Dame has a rich history of crushing Navy. And so I kind of like that bet a little bit more than the under. I like it that it's counterintuitive, but I'll give you the last word and maybe just talk for a minute about this coaching change that Notre Dame or that Navy has made, because Nate mentioned the Kennesaw State OC hire, but the head coaching change is not exactly a culture shift.
Yeah. I mean, it seems really bizarre. You fire a coach after a 4-8 season and replace him with his own defensive coordinator. Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, what was the point of really moving on from their coach who was already the career wins leader there? It just doesn't seem like enough has changed at Navy. I think the addition of Hartman at Notre Dame is going to make a big difference, and I think Notre Dame lives up to the hype for a change.
Yeah, firing the coach and hiring the defensive coordinator is like a classic Ole Miss move when they're facing like 95 sanctions. Is like, oh, we canned our head coach and we hired the chaplain for 3 years while we can hand out 6 scholarships. And then after that, maybe we'll, get back in the deep sea and try to get a big dog.
It's too early to be this down on Ole Miss.
Yeah. Well, that's, look, that's, I'm going to do that all year long. Rest in peace, Matt Luke.
No, but at least wait for them to play a game.
against Mercer, we'll see. I'm not going to that game, by the way. If anyone's interested, I'll watch it at home. I'm not sitting in 100-degree heat.
Look out for Mercer. They've got a
Oh
good
my
passing
God.
attack.
Yeah, FCS.
I'm not saying they can win the game, but that might be a good
cover.
spread play.
FCS.
Look, Dan, I can't even find a line on the Mercer North Alabama
game.
game.
It's not up yet. I've been looking all morning. It's usually a couple of hours before, which makes that parlay I hit last year all the more impressive.
Yeah, that's right. The FCS parlay.
Hey guys, give me a second here. I got to change my internet stream. It's acting up on me, so I'll be just back in a minute.
Yeah, that's totally fine. We know you're in the middle of a move, so we get that. So then, okay, let's talk a little bit about the other kind of bigger game on the slate, I guess. USC San Jose State, I believe. I mean, we could maybe talk for that a little bit and then go around the horn with some of these weirder games, especially if John's doing the internet thing. He's not interested in some of these more week 0 weird games. But Dan, we'll start with you again. Like, what do you see in the USC San Jose State game here?
I mean, I'm thinking a lot of points for the Trojans here. San Jose State only returning 5 defensive starters. Last year, defense was their strong point, really, the past couple years, but they don't have much back this year on defense. I think that San Jose State can probably keep pace for like a half, maybe, but I think USC's offense is just going to be too strong. I don't really want to touch that 31.5 point spread, but I think the total looks like it could be a good play.
Nate, you want to touch the spread?
I'll touch the spread. I just feel like the squarest guy in the world right now. My inclination looking at this game is that USC probably gets off to a hot start. This feels like the sort of like Caleb Williams like coming out party, right? He's got all the hype. You know that USC is going to want to just sort of get him his numbers as quickly as possible so they can get him the hell out of the game and get him back on the bench where he's safe for games that actually mean something. My thought is that they'll probably jump out to a pretty big lead. So I kind of like USC minus 17.5 or 17-ish, which I think is kind of where they're at right now. For just the first half, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Just because I think that like that's just how this feels to me. San Jose State's like not good. Like Chevin Cordero's fine. Like he's good for the Mountain West, but he's not like good. Like I watch a lot of Mountain West games because I live in a Mountain West state and I went to a Mountain West school. And I'll tell you that like being the leading passer in the Mountain West is not like necessarily the thing that you need to like, be giving people like a ton of credit for. What?
Hang your hat on.
Yeah, hang your hat on. Like it's just not how I view guys. So I don't foresee San Jose State putting up much of a fight. I guess it just depends. Like I'm hesitant to lay the points for the whole game because it feels like USC is just going to be getting everybody minutes towards the end of this. If it plays out like I think it will, because I suspect they probably get out to a pretty big lead and then just put everybody away. 31
points is so hard to lay, but I do feel like kind of in auto fade mode with the Mountain West as they play any Power 5 school. Last year, I was all over the Mountain West. I was like, oh, there's a lot of value in this stupid conference. I used to watch Nevada games and, they're not that bad. And that was just not true. Other than maybe a couple teams in football. Now basketball is a different story, but in football, it's hard to trust these teams that don't seem to play any defense when they go up against a real school where their offense can't stutter. Now, I do like the points again in the over. I think that's still kind of the play that I'd recommend taking the most, but I don't know. I mean, I think the problem, like Dan said, is like, okay, so USC gets off to a hot start and then it's just the B squad, maybe the C squad, and you still got to cover that 31 points. That can be hard to do. It's not like USC needs to make a statement. I mean, they're already like a top 10 ranked team. They're not doing style points here. So I kind of feel the same way about that game that I do the Notre Dame game. So, we'll see. We'll see where we go there. Now, Dad, is your internet back up?
Yeah, I'm laying the 31. Look, these games at the beginning of the season against inferior teams, this thing is going to get rolled up big time. look, USC has got to. They're one of the first games on the card. You got to say, okay, we belong in the SEC or wherever the hell they're going, right? We're getting out of the Pac-10, Big Ten, right? We got to get out of this thing. And so what? You beat San Jose by 13. Come on, this thing is going to be these teams can't even play on the same field. 31 is nothing to me. This is going to be one of those games, 57-7. You're going to turn it off at the half and go count your money. So I like the Trojans minus 31. I like the midshipmen plus 20.5 and plus 12.5 in the first half.
Okay, see, now I'm rethinking my USC is going to cover angle. Maybe I need to take San Jose.
Maybe you guys should just get my pick first.
What is this about these teams don't belong on the same field necessarily? They just played 2 years ago, and it was only 23-7 after 3 quarters.
You look at what USC has done and what San Jose State has done. This thing, look, they're at home. They're moving to the Big Ten.
Of course,
right?
they're at home. They always play this
statement game. This is a big statement game. Hey, let's prove why we're getting the hell out of the Pac-10 with the Pac-12, which is a disaster. So I just think they're going to roll this thing up. And, you guys are just saying, they put their second string in the second half. The problem is when lighter teams get worn down, the second stringers that come in are still bigger. And so they just get worn down, and then they start going through them like a hot knife through butter. First game out of the box. Play the 31.
Listen, the one thing about San Jose is they're going to need a lot of sleep. Dad, one of the best ways to get good sleep at any day is with a Healthy Cells REM sleep. Tell us a little bit about that.
That is going to be the best segue that I've ever heard. You're getting really good at this radio stuff, right?
I'm the king of segues. I'm the king of segues.
You are that is like the best segue that I've ever heard. Michael, I hope you're catching this because I'm going to send this to the client. Look, I get up every day at 3:45 a.m. 5 days a week. I look like a spring daisy when I get up, right? Why? Because I get a good night's sleep. I only get 6.5 hours, sometimes 6, sometimes 5.5. REM sleep, though, puts me in that deep sleep so I can survive with that. Now, if you're getting 8 or 9 hours of sleep, then you're golden. All you got to do is go to healthycell.com, promo code Godzilla, REM sleep, put that in, and first night, it's not like, I got to take it for 2 weeks, like their joint and mobility. One night, you're going to take this, you're going to get up and you're going to be, what was that? Because it puts you in the 4 stages of deep sleep. I travel with it. I never leave home without it. I always have extra boxes lying around. Healthycell.com, Godzilla, /Godzilla, promo code Godzilla. Get your REM sleep and get 20% off.
We always want to thank Healthy Self for partnering with us. And we want to welcome Darian Kelly for the last little bit of our college football segment here. Darian is our social media manager at GodzillaWins.com and has agreed to bring his expertise to the football season, both NFL and college football for us. We want to thank Darian here. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of these college football games with the last 7 minutes of the show here. So we'll start with Dan, and then we'll go to Darian. Dan, since you're out there in Hawaii, let's talk a little bit Hawaii Vanderbilt. I mean, this is a game that has become sort of, we're all used to seeing it. Last year, Vanderbilt smashed Hawaii, which then kind of led to like Hawaii just being a cover machine because the first game they lost, everybody sort of counted them out, and there was some ridiculous spreads like the Michigan game and some other stuff. So what do you think here? You think Hawaii's got a shot, or is Vanderbilt going to run all over them again?
No, I think Vanderbilt handles this one pretty easily. I mean, Vanderbilt really caught on at the end of last season. They came up with some pretty good performances against the likes of Florida down the stretch. And Hawaii just does not have this going in the right direction. I mean, Timmy Chang came in last year, has a huge rebuilding job on his hands. And last year, Vanderbilt averaged 9 yards a carry against this Warriors team. The defense is a little bit better, but the Hawaii offense just is not that experienced. I don't expect this game to be all that close. I like Vandy covering the 16.5.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there on the Vandy game. For the sake of time, we'll move on to a game that a more general public might be interested in. This is Thursday night, since we don't do we only do the show.
Don't I get Saturday. To pick the Vandy game?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go quickly though. We've got like 5 minutes.
Vandy minus 17.5. Hawaii's going to an SEC school. Vandy had a good season last season. They got about I read almost half of their seniors returning. I like Vandy here minus the 17.5 blowout.
Okay, so two picks there for the Vandy Hawaii game. Let's talk a little bit about the Thursday night game, Florida Utah, which is sort of an interesting matchup here. Utah often can look a little mercurial early on in the season, especially against teams out there that are not in the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever. Darren, we'll start with you here. Anything you like in the Florida-Utah game on Thursday night?
Yeah, for me, I think that this is going to be one of those games where when we look back on the season, we're going to be like, okay, this is one of those season-defining games. I particularly like Utah, particularly in this feat. I think that for them getting back, particularly, getting back at home specifically and being able to, I think for them, they possess they're a different team when they're at home. So for me, I'm picking Utah, particularly in that spot with particularly Florida, just because they're home. And I think that, for them, this is more of a season defining game, given what took place last year.
Now, Nate, Florida lost Anthony Richardson. They're not ranked, but they are an SEC school, and Utah often has been underwhelming early on. You going with Darian here? You want to take the Utes?
My inclination is that, I think I would have liked the Utes if it was like -4. I don't know if I like them -7. I mean, Florida played them really tough last year, obviously, and got a win. I don't know. I mean, the thing is I don't really like Florida. And I don't know if they have like a good quarterback. Like I watched a lot of Wisconsin games last year because I hate myself. And like Graham Mertz sort of sucks. So I don't know how good their quarterback situation is going to be, but 7 just feels too high for me. Just because, Florida, despite me not liking them, they have a ton of talent that they bring to the field. And I'm not sure that Utah has a quarterback either right now. It seems unclear whether or not we're going to get Cam Rising or if they're going to be playing a backup while Cam Rising's still recovering from a knee injury. So in a game with just sort of a lot of unknowns, we have no idea what Florida is going to look like because they're bringing back so many, or they're just, I guess, bringing in so many new players. My inclination is just to take the 7, but I don't love it. I think that it's pretty close to just being like on that number. So that's sort of where I'm at with it.
What do you think, Dan?
All right. Well, with Cam Rising, iffy, I really like the under here. I think that both teams have far more answers. So I'm on the defense than on the offensive side of the ball. 46.5 isn't a huge number by any means, but these teams played out a fairly low scoring game for most of the game last year in Gainesville. So I think the under might be the way to play it. And also, I'm just amazed that Florida is finally playing a true road game. The last time the Gators actually left the state of Florida without being told to by the SEC for a true road game, I was 3 years old. I'm 35 now. Florida hasn't done this since 1991.
It's really a testament to where the program is right now, where they have to get on a plane for that opening game and go somewhere where it's just, the state of University of Florida football is just different from what it was in the 90s and the 2000s. So the aughts, as they call it. So we'll see. Dad, I know you want to get in here, and then we'll go to break.
Utes at home -7. They're tough at home. I mean, and the whole thing is you guys nailed it. Florida goes in, they have no quarterback that anybody can speak of. We don't know how good they are. We don't know how bad they are. Here's what we do know. The Utah Utes are one of the toughest teams playing at home against really good teams. Every game is competitive, even when they're an underdog. This team seems to just rise to the occasion. Thursday night at home, this thing is going to be standing room only. The Gators, I think Dan nailed it. This is the first time the Gators have had to do this. And, SEC or not, when you don't have a quarterback playing against a very solid, very savvy team on both sides of the ball, I'm going to take Utah lay the 7.
We want to thank Dan Angell, as always, for joining us for a college football segment. You can find all his work at GodzillaWins.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at DanAngel11. We'll let him get out of here and get a little bit of sleep. Coming up top of the hour, Nick Hahn is with us to talk some racing with John Fredericks. Then we're going to do a little NFL. We will be right back.
You're listening to Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
All right, we are back, and we're going to spend some time here talking to Nick Hahn about the races up there at Colonial Downs. My dad's going to lead that conversation, as always, big racing nut. But, Dad, before we do that, let's talk a little bit about Rosie's Gaming Emporium and how people in Virginia can get involved with Rosie's Gaming.
You want to go to rosiesgaming.com. That's rosiesgaming.com. They've got locations all over Virginia. You can go to Hampton. You can go to Richmond, right by where our studio is. You can go to New Kent. You can go to Vinton, outside of Roanoke. Then you've got Collinswood, just outside of Danville. You've got Dumfries in Northern Virginia. It's all there. And if you go right now, guess what? Rosie's got a promotion. If you're a new player and you get a card, you're going to get up to $1,000 in free play, minimum of $25. I'm sorry, minimum of $20 to $1,000 in free play. Just go check it out. You're going to have so much fun. I love going to Rosie's. It is my favorite date night. That's the place to go. The food is great. The service is great. The culture is great. Bigger jackpots than any of the casinos. They got bigger jackpots and bigger payouts because they have a lower take. So if you want to win money and have fun, rosiesgaming.com is the place to go in Virginia.
Absolutely. We want to thank Rosie's for partnering with us, as always. All right, Dad, Nick, take it away. What are we looking at this Saturday for Colonial Downs?
Well, Nick Hahn with us here. Nick, as you can follow Nick, he makes picks in the Mid-Atlantic. He's been doing it forever. Just go to The Racing Biz. That's B-I-Z, theracingbiz.com. You're going to find Nick Hahn there. He's been hot this season. Nick, I'm not there today because we have moving to Pittsburgh. I'll be back next week. Can't wait for the big Virginia Derby. But all the buzz about, I'm going to just start with Colonial Downs overall, taken over by Churchill Downs this season. All the buzz has been the record handle they've had. When they moved this meet to the weekend to compete with Saratoga, everybody was kind of gripping the end of their chair, not knowing what was going to happen, but they continue to get great horses, great jockeys, really good trainers, and their handle is up. So they've competed with Saratoga on the weekend in the summer. Before we get to the specific card today, Nick, why did this happen?
Oh, it's a number of things. Over the last few years, Colonial, they've worked hard. They've made their opportunities. They've also gotten a little bit lucky, to be frank about the whole thing. The first year they were open, or one of the early years, Churchill was redoing their track. So the Churchill horsemen had nowhere to go. So they came here. The next year, call it 21, I guess it was 21 or 22, Arlington Park closes. So the Arlington horsemen had needed somewhere to go with their turf horses. They came here. And this year, you mentioned Saratoga. It is nonstop raining up there. So the turf has been very soft. I think that was a big reason we got Niagara to run in the Secretariat Stakes. He finished second. Originally, he was going to run in the Hall of Fame. It got pulled off. Actually, the race itself got canceled for a week because of rain. So they've been lucky, but hey, the money's been really good. It always has in this Colonial Downs 2.0 era. And the turf course is the safest in the country. And it's been fortune, hard work, and a little bit of luck that has led to this renaissance of racing here in Virginia.
No, look. I mean, I think all of those have come into play. Virginia Derby is in a couple weeks. It's on, what is it, September 9th, Saturday, September 9th. What do you see there?
Actually just looked at some of the nominations. This is like literally fresh off the press. They're still accepting late reservations. How it works is you have nominations that can get mailed in. So while the closing is in it was yesterday, it's pending late mail. But we're going to get Gigante. He's not going to supplement this time for $10,000. They just went the normal nomination route. Program Trading has been nominated. Nagarok has been nominated, but I don't think is going to run here. Motion just doesn't like that extra 16th for some reason. Farbridge is a talented horse that's been nominated. Dataman is going to come from the Motion barn. Major Dude's been nominated. So there are 38 nominations as it stands right now. So it's going to be pretty much a carbon copy of the Secretariat Stakes. And don't forget, next week they have the Commonwealth races starting on Saturday. So you have the Meadow Stable, the Camptown, the Bird Allen, the Nellie Mae Cox, the Jamestown, and they've added another stake. It's a handicap technically, the Extravagant Kid, who was owned by David Ross. He won a race over in Dubai after winning the Tahas here. So a big Saturday coming up next Saturday. Not a bad one today. And of course, they close out with the Virginia Derby and the Virginia Oaks on September 9th. The governor likely will be back for that one.
No, I'll have to get my suite up again, I'm sure. Nick, give me your I'm not there today, so I've not looked at the card. Give me your top three winners today at Colonial Downs on this Saturday, August 26th.
Got a couple of interesting horses here. Treasure Trove is a full brother to Rombauer, and Rombauer is a horse they've been trying to put back on the turf. This will really sort of be an indicator, bred by the Fradkins. This will really sort of be an indicator of how Rombauer might do on the turf. He never raced on the turf. He was retired basically after his 3-year-old year. So he's trying to make a comeback to sort of help his stallion value. Grandpa's Kids is an interesting horse. We're going to have a little feature on the Racing Biz about Gavin Ashton. This is a jockey. He's basically a washed up soccer player and a cook. You know, you don't really expect a talented jockey to come from that background, but he's here at Colonial Downs. He won a race last night. He's won 6 races in America, all here at Colonial Downs. He had some success in Europe before he came over here, and then he just sort of threw it caution to the wind and decided to come to America. He's on Grandpa's Kid. This is a horse I think it's a little bit of a price, but I think should do very well here. You're looking at Z First in the 7th race. That might be our first 3-time winner of the meet. Z First is, I'm pretty sure, the only 2-timer on the flat. We did have a horse win on the jumps and a flat, which is a very unique double. So those are some of, they're a little bit later in the card. Those are some of the horses that I'm going to be looking at on the card.
And give us the numbers in the races. Treasure Trove.
Okay, Treasure. So it's taking it from the 7th race forward. Shambo is in that race as well. That's a very colonial horse, if you will. This is a horse that won the Tyson Gilpin twice and didn't start until he was 5 years old. I don't even know if you can do that now right. Under Heisa. But it looks like he's going to make a start today. If he doesn't start today, that'll be next week. In the 7th race, Shambo is the 1. Z First is the 7. In the 8th race, looking at that Grandpa's Kid, that's sort of my long shot play of the day. The 7 horse, Grandpa's Kid, that's Eagle Point horse, Karen Dennehy Godsey with Gavin Ashton aboard. And then Treasure Trove is the 5 horse, 5-1 in the morning line, again with Gavin Ashton aboard. So if Gavin Ashton wins one of those 2 races, I'll be very happy because he's bringing a lot of price, even though he's very much on the upswing in terms of new jockey talent.
All right. Want to thank Nick Hahn for being with us today, giving us his expert picks. We're going to see him again next week, which I'll be back to Colonial Downs. Nick next week as we finished out our move here to Pittsburgh Mania. Nick Hahn, thanks. You can follow Nick. Here's what you do. Yeah, there's a lot of Steelers fans here. I can tell you, this is, of any city I've ever lived in, this is a sports town. In fact, you can't go out here without seeing somebody with either a Steelers shirt or a Penguin shirt or a Pirates hat. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable. In fact,
have you rode the inclines yet? The cars.
I've heard about it. I've not done it, but I'll tell you this: on all the we own 2 radio stations now in Pittsburgh. We don't carry hockey anywhere. We just don't carry hockey. But I just struck a deal with the Penguins. We're going to be carrying the Penguins on our stations here because everybody I run into is a Penguins fan. And so if they can't get to the games, there was a hole here in the area that we're in West Allegheny. So we're picking up the Pens. But the other thing about Pittsburgh is this is a food town.
Yes.
My biggest concern now is, like, I cannot put on another pound, right? I am at the absolute max. And all this food out here, I order a salad the other day and they say, the regular salad, well, yeah, with the ham or whatever. On top of it, automatically French fries go on top of the salad. You have to say you don't want them. So they serve this big salad with a dump of French fries on it. I'm like, man alive, man, I better start working out or something here. I'm never
so
gonna survive.
when you order a salad, do you have to say medium or well done?
Yes. And you have to say, I don't want French fries, or they automatically come on it. It's kind of how they make it in Pittsburgh. It's something else. But anyway, Nick Hahn, I'll see you next week. Go to theracingbiz.com, theracingbiz.com. Follow Nick there. Nick,
hey, thanks, John. See you next week.
Back to Jack.
And look, we want to thank Nick for all he does with us, coming on the show all the time. And really go check out the Racing Biz. I read Nick's picks every week just to get a little bit of horse racing content. I mean, I'm not in Virginia, so I can't go on. I don't have DraftKings either, so I got no ability to actually play these picks. But I started reading them when Nick started coming on, and they're just, it's a lot of fun, and finding good racing picks and good writing about racing can be very difficult. It's a sport that has a lot of really great journalism around it, but is not always easy to find. So when you find a good one, at least for me, I tend to stick with it. So Nick, I just want to say, great job with the Racing Biz. I love reading those picks every week. You want to check that out, you just go to theracingbiz.com. I think they're on Facebook and Twitter, as I know they're on Twitter. So absolutely, if you're in Virginia, look, stop by, check out Colonial Downs. It's a lot of fun. They've really done a lot with that. So we want to thank Nick again. Hopefully it'll be a successful day for him. We know it will be. And now we're going to turn a little bit to the NFL. Look, we got a lot of NFL we can talk. We got about 45 minutes. Sheriff David Clark will be joining us soon. Patrick Assalone as well. But Dad, before we do that, I mean, one of the things that I always do now when you and Nick talk is I turn off my camera for a minute and I go get more Beard Vet coffee, because that's just how I have to start my day. Tell us a little bit about how our listeners can grab some of that Beard Vet coffee.
I tell you what, if you're a coffee connoisseur, I even got a chip on the bottom of my cup. Sammy knocked it over, right? You can see that. Sammy's been a little bit, wants some attention, right? So he knocked down my Beard Vet cup, but I got a little chip on it. But I still drink out of it because it is the best coffee you're ever going to get. Just go to beardvet.com, promo code Godzilla. You're going to get 10% off. If you love coffee, and I love coffee, I drink 8 to 10 cups a day during the week, not so much in the weekend. But here, I got my Beard Vet here. This is bold. This is smooth. It's the best coffee you've ever had. And then you get hooked on it. This is the only bad thing. You got to order a lot of it because you're going to get hooked. And then when you travel, you got to put them in your box. You got to put them in your case. You got to put them in your suitcase, because you can't drink that hotel coffee. It's like yuck. Go to beardvet.com, beardvet.com, promo code Godzilla, 10% off. You can thank us later.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Go to beardvet.com / use the promo code Godzilla.
Damn, that's good
absolutely.
stuff.
So we want to welcome back Darian Kelly, who is working with our social media division at Godzilla Wins. Been doing a terrific job. Engagement is way up. I meant to email Darian this week. Engagement has been through the roof since he's taken over. So we love having him on. And Darren, I just want to take maybe a minute or two and introduce you to our listeners, because you've not been on the show before, and just kind of introduce them to some of the stuff you're involved with, because along with Godzilla Wins, you have a lot of other stuff you're doing. Maybe tell them a little bit about the Jersey Sports blog and some other stuff you might be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate the opportunity for coming on, and thank you guys for having me. But a little bit about myself. I'm the founder of the Jersey Sports Network. And under that, I have a podcast called the Jersey Podcast by Darian Kelly, in which I speak to different individuals within the sports, business, and technology space. And just interviewing and storytelling is one of my biggest things. And I also write for business and college sports, particularly on NIL stories, as well as the business behind sports betting as well, with Splash Sports. So pretty much covering everything business related from the sports side is pretty much what I specialize in. So that is my forte all the way.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Darian, like, I'm kind of interested, just, we could talk for this for a couple minutes. What drew you to the sports business world? I mean, look, my father has been in the business world now, I don't know, 50 years. I'm a teacher, so I'm in the public sector and really haven't done a whole lot of stuff when it comes to business. But, I think when most people think sports journalism, they think on the field, media day, chasing down coaches, trying to make picks for a game or something, which I know you do some of as well. But I'm just kind of interested in what drew you to the sports business side of this, which is a whole different angle with a lot of moving parts.
Definitely. I think that for me, the number one thing that kind of drew me to the sports business side of things is that, it's more so just a curiosity, I would say. I was always interested in the game within the game, or the story within the particular player. And when you kind of uncover people's stories, whether it's players, whether it's, individuals in the front office, you kind of get drawn to it. You're like, okay, how did that person get there? What went into this game, being sold out, or what went into this particular company, wanting to put their logo, particularly on this billboard of some sort compared to this game. So I think that for me, it was just a natural curiosity. And, I noticed that, a lot of people are fans, but they don't know what actually goes into it. So I was always just really curious of what was going on behind the scenes, as well as kind of the storytelling and trying to find similarities between, my story and someone that was in, whether it was a player or front office individual. It's like, okay, I did the same thing. I had to, be an intern, or I had to, do all, kind of get my hands dirty in the game. And that's what really drew me to them as well. Cause it's like the athletes there, not everybody can, jump as high as, as a particular, athlete, but at the same time, we all know, business or understanding on some sort of degree. So kind of my story and someone that was in, whether it's a player or a front office individual.
Yeah. So a little bit of feedback there. That happens, live radio. So listen, Darian, one thing I want to introduce you when he comes on to Patrick Assalone, who used to be in the sort of agent side of things, and he comes on. He's a UFC guy as well, but used to work with some big time athletes. He has some fun stories. Maybe we'll get a little story time going at some point on the radio in the future. It could be a lot of fun. But yeah, so Darian's going to be with us here. We're happy to have him on the team, especially for the college football season, which is really heating up. Next week, we're going to do 45 minutes of college football, and then about 45 minutes of UFC. We may just do an hour of college football. We got so much going on. We're really excited about this. But right now, we want to talk a little bit about the NFL, because the NFL starting up September 9th. Here we go. I mean, we got about 1 week left, and there's a lot of stories that we can kind of highlight this week. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is something Nate has been texting me about all week long. Dad, you're going to love this. I mean, he's been texting me constantly. He's been all over this. He's got a new favorite team. So the Seahawks last year, the Jags a little bit. Dad, Nate has a new favorite team. Just before Nate reveals his new favorite team, who do you think it might be, Dad?
You know what? My internet connection is going in and out, Jack. You'll have to say that again. Oh,
that's totally fine. That's totally fine. We're going to talk a little bit about Nate's new favorite team. Go ahead, Nate.
So I have a new favorite team, John. You're going to love it. You are going to love it. I've been thinking about it. I was like, what can I do? What team is my team? Last year we had the Jaguars and we had the Seahawks, and that was my teams, right? This year we changed the team. My new team is the Texans, John.
But that's like ridiculous. You just do that to piss me off. You know what? You guys are going to get beat 2 times. You're going to win 2 games. I mean, do you guys just make this stuff up to aggravate me? Right? You got all these different teams. I thought you were a Cowboys fan. Now you're going to Texans suck, right? They got nothing. This is a 3-win team. The Titans are going to beat them 2 times. Titans are going to win the division. All they got to do is beat Jacksonville once at home. And now, what compelling argument do you have to follow the Texans? I mean, is it their defense that basically it can't stop the run? Is it they don't have a quarterback? Is it they don't have a running back? Like, what is the compelling reason now you're going to follow the Texans, other than to aggravate me?
I have several compelling reasons. First compelling reason, I think that they will probably get out of the AFC South. I think that they have a real chance to win the AFC South because the AFC South sucks, and that includes the Titans. And I'm becoming more and more skeptical of the Jaguars as a team aside from Trevor Lawrence. That's sort of first compelling argument. Second compelling argument, I think the defense is going to be real. I think they might have the best defense in the AFC South. They added a bunch of key pieces. Will Anderson was, the best defensive player in the draft. They added, Jimmy Ward, Sheldon Rankins, D'Amico Ryans. We know what he is as a defensive coach. And the Texans defense was pretty good towards the end of last year. They were a top 10 unit, just sort of on the back half of the season. And they were really good against the pass. So that's sort of where I'm at. So that's argument 2. Argument 3 is that I'm optimistic about CJ Stroud, and I'm optimistic about them being able to develop him. And I'm optimistic about their new OC being able to develop sort of the run game and be able to get CJ Stroud in some good positions. So I think that I'm always looking for teams that are going to step up that maybe people aren't expecting to sort of make a huge leap. We swung and missed on a couple last season, but we had a couple that really did make that big leap with Seattle, obviously, and with the Jaguars. And this year, I think that the Texans are that team that makes the leap. And I think that Atlanta finishes what they started last year, Jack, and that we have an Atlanta that's a lot better than last year, where we were all over them, and then we just watched them just get destroyed by every team on defense. So
what did they start
last year?
I'm at?
Well, let me say, if you actually start betting the Texans, there's an old saying, right? You part with your money when you don't think things through. But you actually start picking the Texans when we do our contest starting on the 9th, right? Starting on Thursday night. We're all going to pick the games. We're going to have a chart on Godzilla Wins. You go pick the Texans every week, right? Let's put your money where your mouth is.
I'm not going to pick the Texans every week because I'm not an idiot.
Well, because you just pick these teams.
You don't just get to apply the same rules to me because they're my team that you do.
Jets. But they suck. I mean, that's like they're in a 5-year rebuild, dude. So, if you told me Lions or Jets or, even if you came back with Seattle because of the great draft they have, that's like reasonable. But you're coming back and saying, oh, the surprise team of the NFL is going to be the Texans. I mean, come 100%. On, man. Hey, I want to know, look, I don't know where Sheriff Clark is, but I want to know what the deal is with the Cowboys with this trade for San Francisco's quarterback, Trey Lance, who was supposed to be the quarterback of the ages. So the 49ers cut him loose. They send him to Dallas. Well, wait a minute. Dallas has got a quarterback. They got Dak, right? I mean, he's supposed to be the future and the present. What's up with that? Doesn't that trigger questions in your mind as a Cowboys fan? Is what the hell is going on there?
Yeah, so I think that we were waiting for Sheriff Clark to come on for that segment. Are we not?
So go ahead, because for some reason the link won't let anyone else in. So I'm trying to figure it out. So you guys just take this segment and let me troubleshoot this.
Okay, yeah. So here's where I'm at, and Darian, feel free to step in. But I mean, I think for me, just on the surface, what this feels like is just sort of a luxury trade for the Cowboys. Their roster's pretty strong right now. I don't like, I don't look at next year's draft and think, gosh, what we really need is somebody that can add something to the roster in the 4th round. So from that perspective, we've never really had very good backups in our time in Dallas. Dak is obviously sort of notoriously fragile at this point. So for me, it just felt like, I don't know, maybe take a chance. I mean, Trey Lance just hasn't, we don't know enough about Trey Lance to be writing him off that quickly. And this is also like a Jerry Jones sexy play too. He just likes shiny things. But this just feels like Trey Lance is a kid. He's 23 years old. He's thrown very few passes, like basically since high school. He had one really good season in college. Then it was a COVID year, and then it was blah blah blah. And then he gets to the NFL, and he basically gets no real meaningful game time, and then plays in a mud pit at the beginning of last season that's basically impossible for anyone to do well in, and then gets hurt the next game in the first quarter. So we just haven't seen enough of Trey Lance to think from people outside of the building in San Francisco to think he's just done. It just felt like Niners had enough quarterbacks and the Cowboys, don't really need that 4th round pick. So that's sort of where I was at just initially. Darian, do you have thoughts on?
Well, don't you? I mean, look, let's talk about Trey Lawrence for a second, then get everybody involved.
It's Trey Lance.
It was only 12 months ago.
Trey Lance,
right?
Trey Lance.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trey Lance. I'm
Trevor
sorry.
Lawrence.
Let's talk about Trey Lance. 12 months ago from today, exactly 1 year ago, right? He was going to be the future of the San Francisco 49ers, right? I mean, they displaced Jimmy Jesus with him, right? Put Jimmy Jesus on the bench. He was going to be the guy, and he got hurt. But in 12 months, think about this. You go from the future quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, which was a playoff team, you go from that to being traded as a backup to Dallas for a 4th round pick in an ensuing round somewhere. I mean, that is quite the drop off. And all the guy did was get hurt. It's not like he was throwing interceptions and he got benched. I mean, you have to look at Dallas and say, you kind of stole this guy, right?
Darian, do you have thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that, this is the Cowboys doing what the Cowboys do, right? Just staying relevant in the news just because if the Cowboys really wanted to solve their quarterback problem, they would have solved it, maybe 2 years ago, right? So I don't really think that they're being serious. I think that the Cowboys just want to continue to keep their name in there because it's like they know that Dak is very limited. He has a ceiling. And everyone knows that he's a 4th rounder. It's like no matter what Dak does, at the end of the day, it's like it's 4th round. Like you have to think that, you have to consider that in your mind when you're evaluating him. And I just think that that's what it is. And as far as Trey Lance is concerned, I mean, it's a lot of pressure on him, right? He hasn't, on top of what you all mentioned, he hasn't played a lot of football. And we understand that when guys don't play a lot of football, it normally doesn't translate to productivity in the league. And then not to mention, on top of the added pressure of having to perform with his abilities, he has to walk into that building every day knowing that that's Shanahan's guy. At the end of the day, like the rumor is that he talked John Lynch out of getting Justin Fields. So it's like you got the pressure of trying to perform, and everyone knows you stink, and you're the head coach's guy too. Oh, that's a lot of pressure. He's dealing with things that we can't even imagine. So I don't want to beat him up, but at the same time, like he's just not, Trey's just not the guy, and that's okay. It's a lot of quarterback talent coming down the pike. It's like, let's just admit we got to wash our hands with this one and move forward. Like that's my take on it.
Yeah, look, I think Darian's exactly right on some of that, because one of the most important things I like to keep in mind with this stuff is like maybe 1 out of every 15 quarterbacks selected in a draft actually shakes out to be a really effective quarterback in the NFL. A lot of these guys can start, they might be serviceable, but if it were easy to draft quarterbacks, we wouldn't talk about the position as being as valuable as it is. It's just a very difficult position to draft for. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you do not. I think that the Trey Lance situation is one where on the San Francisco side of things, you had to get him out of there because that's a distraction. If they're not willing to start him at this point, then whatever they're seeing in training camp, whatever they're seeing in the preseason, they don't like it. And as Darian says, I mean, because this is Shanahan's guy, if Mike Shanahan doesn't feel like he can start his guy, the guy that he drafted for his system, then there's no way that this guy is in any way NFL ready. So you got to get him out of San Francisco so you can stop having to ask questions about the Trey Lance situation. Why isn't Trey Lance starting? What's the progress on Trey Lance? Is it the injury? Whatever. Now, on the Dallas side, they gave up basically nothing for a quarterback with a ton of upside. He's 23 years old. They already have a quarterback. Dak Prescott is the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He will be for a long time. Jerry Jones doesn't like to just shake things up in that way. And, you know, I mean, like, look, I like to make fun of Dak all the time because one, he went to Mississippi State. So, you know, I mean, I got that angle. I'm always mad at him for beating us in the Egg Bowl like 100 times. So there's that. But, you know, also look, I mean, his interception numbers aren't great. He never seems to get them over the hump, and he's injured all the time. Why not have a backup with a ton of upside that quite possibly can be the guy who can step in and get you 5, 6, 7 wins, or if he's out for the season, can at least be serviceable. Or maybe, just maybe in the future, they feel like he might be ready. Now, here's my problem with this. I don't trust Mike McCarthy to steward a young quarterback with a bunch of mental issues into some sort. I mean, this isn't Andy Reid here. So, you know, in that sense of the word, I'm just not sure that I care too much I'm not like that high on his upside because of the Mike McCarthy situation. But as far as the trade goes, I think for the Cowboys, I mean, this, like, they gave up a 4th round pick. It's not like they gave up.
Yeah, they stole them.
You know how much San Francisco had to give up to get him in the first place? I mean, come on.
Right.
3 first rounders and a
that's my point.
Right, to Miami.
Yeah, the Cowboys stole him. But Jack, I think you just gave the best analysis. I mean, he was a distraction in San Francisco because you're right. Shanahan got the constant questions. What are you going to do with Trey Lance? What are you going to do with Trey Lance? What's the deal with Purdy? Right. So he ended that. He ended all that dysfunction. But they gave him away. And so Dallas actually stole him. I'm kind of looking at this as a Titans fan, and I'm saying, well, wait a minute. We should give up a 4th round draft pick for this guy and would get rid of Malik Willis that looked horrible again yesterday. This guy's not an NFL quarterback. The other guy's hurt. You know, we could give up a 4th round draft pick with that. It's going to be higher than Dallas's. So where's that trade and get rid of Malik Willis, who was a disaster again last night? The guy's not an NFL quarterback. So I was kind of disappointed. We didn't make that deal because I thought for Dallas it's a great deal.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I mean, go ahead, Nate.
Well, to speak to Jack's point about Mike McCarthy sort of maybe not being the most effective steward of keeping sort of harmony in a quarterback room. Remember that Mike McCarthy's tenure in Green Bay really started with sort of a disaster with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre in the same quarterback room. And it ended with them basically having to like jettison Brett Favre because it was just a disaster having the two of them together. And that could be, you know, as we've learned about both of them since then, they could have just been 2 unique personalities that maybe just didn't work well together. Certain egos that didn't work well together. But just in terms of looking at the past, I think that that's a real thing to think about is at some point, do you get too much talent or ego or weird personalities in there? There has to be a reason that Trey Lance got turned loose from San Francisco. And it can't just be because he's the 4th best quarterback on the team. There has to be a real reason, something going on, that it was too much of a distraction for them. And that's, as a Cowboys fan, not necessarily a distraction that I'm looking forward to this season, unless Mike McCarthy has really learned something. And he's always saying he learned something, but he never actually learns anything. He just does the same thing every single damn year.
So who was your backup quarterback 24 hours ago?
Cooper Rush.
Who got them a bunch of wins last year.
Yeah,
I mean,
who won a bunch. Yeah, he's like decent.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is like a story. I think it's more a story for San Francisco than it is for Dallas, because unless Dak gets hurt, I'm not really sure that will even see much of Trey, and it gets him in a situation where nobody at Dallas is like, well, shouldn't Trey Lance get some reps? It's like, no, I mean, so it's more of a story for San Francisco. And I kind of want to bring Patrick into this discussion because Patrick, you've worked before. We were talking about this earlier before you joined. You worked before with NFL players and as with some NFL agencies and stuff like this. And when we're talking about a guy like Trey Lance, who really it seems is just not living up to the potential, I'm kind of wondering about your perspective on what that just does to a young athlete.
Just kills him, essentially. And I was listening to what Nate was saying. I think there's some validity to what Nate was saying that he was discounting. It's not just because he's the fourth best player on the team. Maybe it is. You got three other guys that are better. Maybe you can get something for this guy that somebody else values. But what I can tell you is when there's so much expectation put on you and your entire life you've been blown up and put on a pedestal, now you're amongst the best of the best and there's nowhere to hide, it can be soul crushing for people. So they come to Jesus very, very quickly when they get to the pros and the holes are exposed and the dents in their armor are exposed and they're not as great as they thought they were, and even worse, what everyone else thought how great they were.
I mean, this is a job where there are 32. There are 32 starting jobs. So this is a country of 320 million people, and there are 32 jobs. So it is just a very competitive field. There are not 32 high school teaching jobs. If there were, I would not be a high school teacher. So that's just part of it. And I think for San Francisco, they kind of had to move in this direction as well. Now, Dad, one of the things about Trey,
Jack, also the 32 jobs in the NFL, I think everybody on this panel will agree there's a top 5 and then the rest of them. So it gets even, it's honestly, there's degrees of separation here too. And everybody below the top 5, you're replaceable, pal, right now.
That's true. Now, Dad, I'm thinking that if I'm Trey Lance, I need to get some better sleep at night. And one of the ways I can do that is with the MyPillow 2.0. Tell us a little bit about how Trey Lance and others might be able to get a discount on some of that MyPillow gear.
You just got to go to mypillow.com right now. Look, Mike Lindell is like giving the store away. And I'm just going to be candid with everybody. He needs money. And so everything is being discounted up to 80% right now. He's got a lot of balls in the fire. He's being sued by different people. So look, if you want to help Mike Lindell, help yourself. And that's by going to mypillow.com, promo code Godzilla. You're going to get over 20. You're going to get up to 80% off right now. They've got the slippers. If you don't have these, I got to tell you, unbelievable slippers, $25. I'm wearing them right now. Just get your size. They come in male and female. You got to get these slippers. They're the most comfortable thing. And you can wear them outside. I'm sorry, promo code FUN, which is, by the way, the best promo code ever because it's fun, right? You just go to mypillow.com, promo code FUN. Tell you the other thing, we moved to Pittsburgh. We bought their mattress. With the promo code, we got like 30% off, brand new mattress in our bed in Pittsburgh. It is the best mattress I've ever slept on. I go right to sleep. I'm all about the sleep, guys. So they got the Perscal sheets. They got everything there. Just go to mypillow.com. Everything is there. Promo code FUN. Get up to 80% off. Help yourself out.
Yeah, look, I don't know anything about Mike Lindell, but I love the pillows. So let's just stick with that. Promo code FUN, 80% off. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the NFL here. And what I really want to talk about, Dad, and we're going to start with you, is the team that you think is the most kind of overrated. Like the team that is just going to, you can make a lot of money on fading them, would be the best way to put it in the betting world. What is that team for you?
Seattle Seahawks. I think what you saw from their veteran quarterback last year was he gave the team stability post Wilson, right? Now, Geno, the thing about Geno, he's not going to win you games, but he's not going to lose you games. I thought he was very steady last season. I thought he was the picture of consistency, tailed off a little bit at the end. But look, Carroll, who I don't like personally, is a good coach, right? So I got to put that aside. Can't stand the guy, but he's a good football coach in Seattle. They augmented that defensive secondary with a couple of beast draft picks. This team is going to be tough to score on. They're going to be tough at home. They got Geno Smith. They're going to score. They're going to move the football, eat up the clock. I think the biggest team that's going to exceed expectations in the NFL this season, Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, Darian, what do you got here? Who's a team that you might want to be fading?
I would say that the team. I would say, for me, it's got to be going back to. I'll go back to the Cowboys specifically. I'll go back to the Cowboys. For me, it's them because of the quarterback situation, right? I know that the Cowboys defense is gonna, you have Michael Parsons going to, going to the defensive end, putting his hand in the dirt, being more of a Russian. But I don't think that they're going to have. I don't know. I just feel like Dak's ceiling. I don't know. I feel like Dak with the interceptions, what we're seeing in camp, I think is a real concern, and what we're gonna see during the season. I would kind of stay away from it because I don't know what you're going to get from the quarterback standpoint. That's just me personally, but I know that they'll be in close games, but I would be wary of anything that's like high scoring or so to speak, where it's like a shootout and that Dak has to throw the ball or they're in a situation where they have to get a lot of points. I don't think that they're in a situation to excel in that facet. That's just my take.
Yeah, I think I think you're right about that. One team that I've got two teams that I kind of am skeptical of, and it just kind of depends where the lines lie. Now, earlier in the year, in July, I was talking about how much I love the Browns, and I've been thinking about the Browns more and more, and I think they might be a fade early on for me here for a lot of reasons. They're just way too overhyped. I mean, everybody now is talking about the Browns, so I'm expecting those lines to be not so sharp and pretty tight, and I don't know if they'll cover. Now they might win a bunch of games, but I'm talking about, who can I fade? Who's not covering? I think the Browns might be a team that I'm definitely going to be looking at. And then the other one might be the Bears, in Chicago. I mean, I think everybody is still waiting for Justin Fields to pop, and those spreads might be amenable to a fade as well. Nate, you got a team that you want to fade this year early on?
I mean, it's always kind of the same for me, I think. And it's the teams that I'm always skeptical of in the betting market are teams that are on Hard Knocks. It's just, I mean, the Jets are going to be good. Sure. I think that they will be good. Do I think they'll be overvalued by the spread? Probably. Because it's so easy to watch the show, and so many avid NFL bettors do, that you just watch it and you think, this is the greatest team I have ever seen in my life, right? You watch it and you think, Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. There's just a room full of grown men that watch him and they are in awe. They will never lose. And we've seen enough of Aaron Rodgers to know that, like, that's not necessarily true. Like, he's not just becoming like a new person at age 38. For the Jets, like, I'm sure he's like awesome in practice, and he's a lot better than Zach Wilson. Like, I'm sure if you just have spent the last couple seasons watching Zach Wilson, you're like, man, this guy's incredible. We didn't know a quarterback could be this good. But I'm not just totally sold on this narrative that they're just, gonna just transform into, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFL or top 4 teams in the NFL, just by virtue of sort of adding Aaron Rodgers. I think they'll be good, but at the end of the day, I still think they're like the Jets, and there's a lot that goes into the Jets in terms of just tremendous pressure from the city and the fan base. And I think that they're probably going to be a little bit overhyped.
Yeah, you can make money fading that Hard Knocks team early on. It doesn't mean they're not going to win games, but man, I mean, they got a lot, they'll get a lot of money. Vegas, you'll see that in Vegas. Now, Dad, you got maybe a fade you want to talk about? Then we're gonna get to our UFC stuff.
Lions. I'm gonna fade the Lions. They did nothing to improve that defense. If you look at the amount of late points this team gave up last season, it was stunning, right? You know what? I don't care how you move the football. and they certainly have a potent offense. You got to be able to stop somebody, right? We've all seen that. We used to, Jack and I used to be Titans fans, and they used to light our secondary up like a Christmas pinball machine. You just couldn't sustain that. So I think the Lions are going to get overhyped. Everybody's loving the Lions because of, how they've come back. I'm going to fade them because they've done nothing to improve their defense. So I'm betting I'm going to go with Seattle. I'm going to fade the Lions. That's my two plays. My other play, sneaky Bears, sneaky good this season. I'm telling you guys, they're sneaky good. I'm going to be on the Bears. The other team I'm going to fade, New Orleans. Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, we talked about New Orleans a little bit last week. I don't know if I want to fade any team with Ross St. Brown, who's, I think, just incredible. I'm going to take another big leap this year. But, yeah, hey, we'll see. Look, we got 2 weeks for the NFL to start back up here. So we want to thank Darian for coming on the show today with us, talking a little college football, talking a little NFL. Darian, for our listeners, where can they find you on social media?
Yes, you can find me at the Jersey Sports Network on Instagram as well as Twitter as well. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, the Jersey Sports Network.
The Jersey Sports Network. I encourage everybody to check that out. All right. Thank you, Darian, for joining us this morning. We're going to talk now to Patrick about some UFC stuff. Now, Patrick, we at first were like, we were going to scratch it because it's in Singapore. So it's happening literally right now. But the two big fights we were scheduled to talk about haven't started yet. So we still have some time to talk about those. It's like horse racing. You can get your bets in right up to the bell there. So Patrick, before we do that though, let's talk a little bit about target trading wins and losses. How'd y'all do this week?
63 wins, 21 losses, and 4 break evens.
That's a heater. That's what we call a heater. 63 wins.
Heater. 63
Dad,
wins, 21 losses. So literally 3-1.
Yeah, you got that. You got a 3-1 there. Dad, I know that your listeners reach out to you all the time about how they could get involved with target trading. If anyone's listening and they want to get involved and secure their financial future via trading futures, how can they do that with target trading?
Just go to targettrading.co. Look, you're tuned in to Godzilla Wins right now. You can go to GodzillaWins.com. We give you predictions, analysis. We have fun. This is entertainment. And we like to have fun. But if you want to make some serious money, if you want to be serious about enhancing your financial future and getting somewhere, then you want to go to targettrading.co, targettrading.co. The training is rigorous. This is not easy. It's not like we sit here and put a football game on and, hope Navy gets a touchdown. This is a little bit tougher. But if you put the time in, you're going to be successful. I got about 125 students in it that have come to Patrick from our radio. I'm 125 for 125. Haven't got a single complaint from anybody. If you follow his program, you are going to be successful because the core of it is they do what the gangster banksters on Wall Street does, and they're ahead of them. That's the beauty of this thing. The system's rigged, so you get in on the rig. That's why I love their program from day one while we got together. You get in on the rig going in on Wall Street, and you can make a lot of money if you follow a system and do it the right way. Just go to targettrading.co, targettrading.co. 125 for 125 is pretty good. I'll tell you the other thing. He tells you every week exactly. They tell you how many wins they had. These are live plays, live by his students in his program, live buys, how many wins, how many losses. He does it by week, by month, by quarter, and annually. No one else does that because they can't. He can because of his record. Patrick, have I summed everything up?
Yeah, I would say so. I think year to date, my sales manager was telling me we're 2,400, 700, and 150. So somewhere around 2,400 wins, 700 losses, and about 150 break evens for the year so far.
Fantastic. Great job.
So listen, we got about 10 minutes for the UFC, and I want to do two things because listen, we don't want to talk about the Korean Zombie. We just don't. I know we don't. So we're going to chuck it. And what I want to talk about just very quickly is the Sterling O'Malley fight from last week. Because I just, Patrick, I was sitting there watching it thinking, this is just going to infuriate Patrick. There's no way that he's going to walk away from this being like, oh, that was fun. So give us your initial sort of quick thoughts on the O'Malley knockout there, and then the kind of TKO situation where the fight was stopped.
Well, when you walk out into a fight with your hands down and your chin up, asking to get KO'd, that's generally what you get. I don't know who came up with this strategy, whether it were Sterling himself or his coach, but his coach should be fired in either circumstance, because he bent over and he allowed his fighter to use that strategy, or his coach gave him that strategy. So one or the other, the guy's got to be fired. End of story, period.
I mean, we talked about this last week. There was one way that O'Malley could win by a knockout. I mean, yeah, we sat there and we said, hey, look, if you like O'Malley, take him 5-1, because the only way he can win is just knocking him out with his striking ability. And then Aljo comes up there, Sterling, and he's got his hands down and he's just staring at O'Malley, daring him to hit him in the face, and that's what happened. Nate, is O'Malley like the champ now? I mean, I know he is, but is this or like, I mean, what's going on?
I mean, for me, I watched it and I texted you afterwards. I should have texted Patrick, because I immediately put on like my tinfoil hat, because everything I've read is like, great, incredible knockout from O'Malley. And what I saw watching the replay, and I watched it a few times, was I watched Sterling get knocked down, and then I watched him with his hands up, still sort of defending himself, still sort of actively trying to get up for probably 5 seconds, 10 seconds. And then the referee comes just as it looks like Sterling's about to get back on his feet, and then they wave the fight off. So instantly I was sort of like, it felt like if there was a time to stop it, it should have been when he first hit him, boom, and he was on the mat. Sure, you want to stop it, then fine, whatever. But he didn't, and there was enough like wiggle room that it felt like Sterling was sort of getting himself back together, and that's when they waved it off. And that's when I just felt like, God, the UFC just doesn't make it easy sometimes with this sort of thing, to not think that they're trying to.
Well, but Patrick, I'll play devil's advocate, and you correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, as soon as Sterling rolls over to his stomach, they wave it off, which I've always sort of understood that if you're on your stomach, that's basically a defenseless position. The other guy's standing up. But maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe they waved it off too early.
Well, you've got to look at it this way. You've got to be intelligently defending yourself. That's essentially the rule. The first time I fought for the World Championship, World Extreme Fighting World Championship, I was on my back. I had my opponent in a leg lock. I broke his ankle. I tore his knee out. He never fought again, but he punched me 3 consecutive times while I was on the ground, and I did not answer. Those were the rules in Georgia at that time. That's it. So the rules get it depends who's interpreting them, right? Because if you ask me, I don't think Sterling was out of this fight. And I'm not saying this to try to salvage any pick that we made. He wasn't. You've got to KO the freaking champion or put him into oblivion where he's drooling out of the side of his mouth and can't see straight to win this fight. So I definitely agree. I am going to tell you, Dana does not fix fights. This is not a professional wrestling match where the outcome is predetermined. But let me tell you something. You can load some serious leverage on in every portion of that fight to put it in somebody's favor as much as humanly possible. Absolutely, you can. Referees have been fired before. Okay.
Yeah, look, they love O'Malley. I mean, he's so marketable. He's so good at social media, and they hated Sterling. And so they got the outcome they wanted. And like we talked about, they set up this fight so that they gave O'Malley the on-ramp in order to become the champ. And he did exactly what they hoped he would. And Sterling just had a really horrible strategy. So let's talk then very quickly. We got a couple minutes here, but we'll talk a little current UFC. We're not going to talk the Korean Zombie, but let's talk Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann. I'll let Nate set this up for Patrick, and then we'll give Patrick the last word.
All right, Patrick. So we got Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann, co-main event. We're not talking Holloway Korean Zombie just because it looks like this is just something that Holloway walks through. So we're doing the other co-main event. They fought before in 2021, and it did not make it very long before Smith got the rear naked choke for the win. So they're coming off some losses apiece. Smith hasn't really won in a while. So what do we think about this for these light heavy guys? They're both pretty well traveled. They both bring some pretty exciting sort of fight dynamics every fight they're in, not necessarily good or bad, just sort of volatile, I guess is the best way to describe it. So what are we looking for here between these two guys?
And I love volatile fights. And
I know you do. That's why we did this.
Spann is not the same guy he was 4 or so years ago, and neither is Smith. Smith's got a lot more mileage on him. He's been in some freaking wars. I think Spann has not had the amount of wars. This should be the main event, not Zombie and Max Holloway. I think Spann has matured as a fighter since then. I think he's got a lot more tools in his toolbox now. I'm taking Spann on this. It is really hard to knock out Anthony Smith. He's a tough guy. I would probably say this might be a war. So I'm thinking maybe Spann by decision. That's the way that I'm looking at this.
Oh man, you are speaking my language. The only bet I made on this was Spann by decision at 13-1.
Yeah, and that's why too. Yeah.
And
close every other place to really do. When you got odds like that, you have to take them or you're not going to respect yourself in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. I mean, and I think that there's value in that going to a decision because Spann for most of his career has been known as a guy who's sort of like a first round knockout king, right? If he's going to finish a fight, it's going to happen in the first round. If he's going to lose a fight, it's going to happen pretty early on too, because he's just so much pressure all the time. But yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. Like Anthony Smith is tough as hell. And the things that he's not really the things that bother Anthony Smith tend to be leg kicks. That's what I keep seeing is leg kicks. The good news for him in this fight is that Spann doesn't really ever throw leg kicks. He's pretty much just throwing hands and trying to grapple. So from that perspective, this feels like a fight that, yeah, like Smith could hang around there if he can survive some of these heavy blows, especially in the first round or two. This feels like a real sort of, I think that I don't hate anyone that wants to bet Anthony Smith or Ryan Spann in this, but the Spann by decision at 13-1 was just like, you got to just throw a little bit of beer money on there at least. Look, because that seems so outrageous against a really tough fighter.
Dad, you're the king of tailing. You're the king of tailing these crazy picks here. You're in Pennsylvania. You go to DraftKings right now. Ryan Spann by decision 13-1. Write it down. I mean, those odds in the UFC, you can't get those in a fight this close. I mean, you can get them in fights where it's never going to happen, but I think that bet right there is probably the best way to go.
And I'll tell you that Smith is a phenomenal submission grappler. He's really good. He can absolutely last on the ground. This thing goes on the ground, they're pretty much going to cancel each other out. So to me, it looks like a long night for both of them. They're both going to earn what they get paid tonight.
Well, we'll see. I mean, really, it's the morning. It's the night in Singapore. Yeah. But the fight's probably we're going to hear the bell here pretty soon, so you can tune in on the ESPN. I think it's on ESPN Plus. I don't think this is
on ESPN Plus. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can tune in there and watch that fight pretty much this morning. Really, really great time for sports when you can watch a blood sport, Patrick, at like 5 a.m. where Nate is.
It was a pretty early morning for me at 3 when I turned on my phone. Yeah.
Nate, with your beer and cornflakes, freaking first thing in the morning, some bacon, boom, blood sport. There's nothing better.
Let's go. Yeah, I mean, I got it all out of the way early today.
Yeah. Maybe knock back a vodka grapefruit and watch the greatest blood sport in America.
Dude, I'm sitting at the bar right now. Maybe I'll just walk over and just pop one and just.
Is that where you are? Are you at the bar? Show. Where is that? I was looking at your backdrop, Nate. Is that the bar that you're at?
Yeah, that's where I record the show. Yeah.
For people not in the bar business, and if you've never been in the bar business, what you don't seem to understand is this is when our night would start.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I am so glad I'm not in that business anymore, because there are a lot of times where I was eating cottage cheese at like 9 a.m. thinking I have got to go to bed. It's not exactly
it's freaking sunlight outside.
Yeah. The alternative lifestyle is one that dovetails very well with the blood sport of the UFC. Yeah. Listen, we want to thank Patrick Assalone from TargetTrading.co. As always, we want to thank Nate Perry, John Fredericks, my father, Dan Angell, Darian Kelly, and we will see Sheriff Clark next week. He's chomping at the bit to talk about the Cowboys. That is the Godzilla Wins Pick Show. Tune in next week for a full slate of college football.